Townsend, congratulations on being inducted into the California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Very happy for you.
Thank you. I'm excited for it.
I have a few questions I'm going to ask you about your background.
Okay.
The first one is, what individual had the greatest impact on your wrestling career?
You know, by far, I would have to say it's my wife, Patricia Saunders. She actually was a kind of a consultant for me, and you know, there's lots of conversations that we had. You know, as I was competing, as I finished up with college, and as I finished up with my international career, you know, before competition, during competition, before practices. I mean, there are lots of sessions that I would equate to probably $1,000 session that I'm sure a professional psychologist would charge, you know, because she definitely has this ability to communicate and present like complex ideas in a simple way. And so she definitely helped get my mind right, you know. And so wrestling is such a mental sport, and I think she definitely contributed to me being focused and had the right mindset, I think, for a competition.
Great. Who was your wrestling idol or hero growing up? Did you have one?
Absolutely. I don't know a wrestler that doesn't have a wrestling idol, you know. So I had several, you know, but one that certainly sticks out is Lee Kemp, who was a three-time, you know, world champion, three-time NCAA champion. And so I always admired him. I mean, he was actually African-American. I'm half black, half Mexican, you know, and so I definitely related to him. There was a poster up in my wrestling room of Lee Kemp, and so I identified with him. And he had a little bit of a conservative style, too,
yes,
where he was able to control the match, the pace of a match, and then explode and score. And so that was kind of a little bit like my style as well, too. So.
Interesting. What personal attribute contributed to your success in the sport of wrestling?
Yeah, I'd have to say I was my physical ability. I was physically stronger than a lot of my opponents, and so you know, there was a phase when I first started wrestling where I got really, really tired, and so I learned to control the tempo, control the pace of a match, and then I would explode. But being physically, I guess, gifted really contributed to a lot of my success, I think, and that, and I think the fact that you know, I had a lot of success later on in my career, and so, you know, not having won a state championship or not having won an NCAA title, I think stepping onto the mat with somebody that maybe I had less to lose and more to gain. I think that contributed to my success as well.
That's interesting. What is the most outstanding memory you have from your wrestling career? I mean, in your wrestling career. I mean, do you have something that stands out?
You know, I would have to say in 1994, I was wrestling in the finals of the Goodwill Games World Championships. It was in St. Petersburg, Russia. And it was the Russian that actually wrestled in the 96 Olympic Games as well, finals. But he was taking me out, pretty much, you know. And there was a point in the match where something triggered. And I thought to myself, you know what, enough's enough. And you can actually see it on the videotape where I slapped the mat. And I stood up, and it was about halfway through the match. I was getting beat by about 4 or 5 points or whatever. And I commenced to just do this little snap to a double leg, you know, technique where I just caught up to him, surpassed him, and ended up winning the match. And that really sticks out to me because it was just something that just kind of triggered where I thought, you know what, I'm not going to let this Russian beat me. I'm going to take him out. I wish I could have replicated that later on in my career because it would have been the secret to the success, maybe winning a couple multiple world titles. But I was never able to do it again. So it certainly sticks out in my mind.
Fantastic. Throughout your wrestling career, what is the single most memorable match? I guess that match. Is it that one? It's almost the same one, huh?
No, not exactly. When you say about memorable match, you know, I'd have to say the finals of the Olympic Games because it was a loss, right? And so I remember that, and I remember not being able to sleep for 6 months. So, I mean, because there's so many, you know, tossing and turning, wishing, you know, I should have, could have, you know, I wish I would have done something different, but you can't change the past, right? You know, so, but I remember losing a lot of sleep. For it was a good 6 months before I had like a good night's rest after the Olympic Games. That or, you know, the finals of my state championship, my senior year in 1985, I lost that match as well. And I vividly remember, you know, as an 18-year-old kid, not being able to sleep and thinking, man, maybe there's a chance that I won't be able to go to the Olympic Games because that match wasn't so close. Like the Olympic Games was really close. It was a tight match. It was very, very close, 1-1 referee decision. But the state championship, I got taken out. And so I remember thinking, gosh, maybe there's a chance that I won't make the Olympic team because there's actually some wrestlers out there that can really beat me. I mean, beat me, you know. And so. But I mean, wrestling is a sport that, you know, rewards longevity, and you keep at it, and you know, you continue to improve. And And if you can do that, then you'll have more success. And so,
What made you get involved in the sport of wrestling?
well, you know what? I enjoyed playing football, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And after about junior high, you know, my classmates and peers started growing a lot bigger than me. And so wrestling was a sport where it's weight classes, and so I was able to compete against people that were exactly my same size. And so I was able to experience success again. You know, and so it was just do some suggestions of some friends and stuff, and I had some success early on, and so I really enjoyed it.
If you had the opportunity to start your career again, is there anything you would change?
You know, I had a pretty good career. I'm not sure that I would really go back and change a lot of things. I think that I was pretty fortunate, you know, in that, I had a lot of success and stuff. I think if anything, maybe I would, it'd be nice if I had like a crystal ball and I could say, you know, this is your chance to kind of redo some things, and so you could just take the wrestling atmosphere, this wrestling community, and recognize it for the brotherhood that it really is. Because, for example, I got fitted for this tuxedo just before coming out here, and I was wearing an Olympic wrestling shirt. And the guy who was fitting me said, you know, did you ever wrestle in the Olympics or something? I said, well, I didn't wrestle in this Olympics, so it was 2004, but yeah, I did wrestle in the Olympics. He said, well, I wrestled in high school. And we had an immediate connection, right? Because once you stepped on the mat, once you wrestled, I don't care if you wrestled for 2 years in the 6th grade and 7th grade, and you got pinned, once you step on the mat, you recognize what other people have been through, and so you have that experience. So there's a bond, and there's a brotherhood, kind of like a fraternity. And so I wish I would have known that coming up as a young athlete, that, hey, these are people that you're going to have as a family for the rest of your life.
Townsend, what would you like people to remember about you?
I think that I tried to give back to the sport. That my story is one of perseverance. Success happened after a little bit later on, and so that just because you don't have immediate success, that doesn't mean that you won't be a champion down the road. As long as you continue to stick with it, continue to try to improve. And so I think that story should be motivating, hopefully, for a lot of young athletes that don't have the state titles or cadet titles or junior national titles or something, because I was one that didn't have those things, but I was able to still have success from just sticking with it and trying to improve day in and day out.
That's terrific, Townsend. I want to congratulate you again for being inducted in the California Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My pleasure.